Hey guys, how's it going? Good to be here. We got a stacked AI DePIN panel focused on Solana over here. Why don't we get some quick intros going? I'll kick it off. I'm Nero, CEO and founder of MCA Multi-Chain Advisors. I'll be your moderator for today.
Yeah, hi, I'm Yash. I'm co-founder of Sendia. At Sendia, we're building the tooling layer for AI agents. So we built a Solana agent kit, which is a toolkit to connect any AI agents to Solana. And now we are building more on the MCP infra stuff. Already have our own MCP server live, and one of the first crypto MCPs to be featured also on an Anthropic list.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Matt, co-founder of Ping Network. We are doing decentralized networking infrastructure. So it's basically like one platform with a lot of hardware, with internet connection, powering like businesses like VPN, CDN, data scraping.
Hi, Scott Siegel. I run the Helium Foundation. Helium has built the world's largest decentralized wireless network to make sure that all the people and devices around the world can have affordable connectivity. Network originally started for low power sensors, and we have built out large cellular network in the US and continue to scale to support affordable wireless around the world.
I'm David. I'm the founder and CEO of Permissionless Labs, contributor to Pipe Network. We're building a hyper-local CDN for low latency content delivery, putting the nodes down the neighborhood and getting into single-digit millisecond latency.
Awesome. So all you guys have chosen to build on Solana on the DePIN AI side. What were some of the factors that made that possible and made you guys make that decision?
On Solana, I think the biggest thing which Solana offers is like very high capital velocity. So if you look at most of the meme coins, that's the reason like all the meme coins have been on Solana, because the capital velocity in Solana is like quite high. That comes with like in general like good liquidity for tokens, and like obviously low transaction cost and all of that. So I think like as a DePIN or any project which has a token, you need that like your token has like very good liquidity, and also it is very easy to transact your tokens on. For example, on DePIN, I think micropayments is the biggest thing that blockchain solves the problem of micropayments, where all your contributors get rewarded like very small amount in your tokens. So I think in that like Solana stands out like as compared to like some chains like Ethereum and so on. Apart from that, I think like the overall ecosystem, you get a very unified token standard, a spill token standard, and then on the NFT side, you have like Metablex building all the different NFT standards. So I think like standards are something which are very underrated. That you get like different standards which and you don't even have to write a contract. So as a DePIN project, you hardly have to write a smart contract unless like you are doing some stuff on governance. But in general, like there are so many like good standards and implementations which you can implement right off the bat. So I think like yeah, you can just focus on the core business while Solana handles everything on the token side of the things.
So in our case, I think the most important part was getting data on chain, and the quality of on-chain infrastructure on Solana is like unmatched. And we got introduced to the team from Jita, and they were releasing like the restaking product at the moment. And after that, we also got connections with like Fragmetric, Termina, guys from Gabriel, and they really helped us to cut development time for the on-chain infrastructure. So that was really nice. And another thing, like the liquidity, as Yash said, is not like very fragmented on the Solana. There is no tools, and so the economical security we can get on that blockchain is like the best.
So when Helium launched in 2019, I don't know how many folks know this, we were actually our own layer one from the get-go, and it was written in Erlang. I don't know how many Erlang developers there are in the room, but it's a very, very specific to telco, and everything was being built, any single integration towards wallets, exchanges, anything that we want to do, it was almost like we were living on our own island. So building wireless networks is hard, running a blockchain is hard, building hardware is hard. Why do all of them? So, it was really kind of between core developers and our community, the decision to move off of kind of, I would say, like we euthanized our own chain for the sake of moving on to something that was more scalable, wireless is really, if you think about human scale applications like wireless, like cell phones, you need a chain that can handle states of accounts for millions, if not billions of users, to manage those things in such a way that the user experience is seamless. And again, like the crypto doesn't get in the way of the actual application success. So for all of those things, for the composability of the tools, the features, the things that come with Solana, an active DeFi ecosystem. So again, considering our global community, that ability to access liquidity and those different types of tools to trade, to borrow, all of these things make it such a valuable ecosystem beyond the technology. Not to mention just kind of the coordination between teams. It helps that Toli is a distributed systems engineer with a background in telco. So all these things combined, it really made so much sense as we were debating where to go from our own chain, that Solana was the very clear answer.
We're very similar. Like Anatoly is very inspiring, and I think our team is, from a traditional FANG background, so having some adult engineers in the room, and I think when we came into the Solana ecosystem, we got blessed and got connected with some other DePIN projects, and I think within the first few days they were uploading like hundreds of thousands of images a second and like tens of gigabits of data, and we knew like this is very real. Like there's startups, this much throughput that they can push on our storage system. We were amazed. Yeah.
That makes sense, and seems to be some notable like patterns here of good leadership from the Solana Foundation and Toli itself. So great to hear that. I guess in general, like the trend in the market has been infra is becoming physical, from CDNs, wireless networks, VPNs, compute being deployed by users and whatnot. What do you think is causing this general shift and change in the markets, and how do you like expect and see this evolving over the future?
I think in general, all the physical network. In general, I think like the concept of tokenization, or even you can say like internet capital market, is very fascinating. That for DePIN project, like issuing tokens or DePIN is a way of bootstrapping capital and a way of coordinating all the contributors as well. Like, so if not DePIN, you would have to like go and give them payments in, let's say, equity, or like just like a normal USD payment. So I think like token is a very good bootstrapping mechanism where you are giving contributors some tokens, or even like points at the start, and then saying that okay, it would be converted into tokens. So I think like without that incentives, like they wouldn't have any incentive to contribute at the network when there's no network. And most of these DePIN networks are typical, I would say, two-sided marketplaces, that there's a demand side and there's a supply side. So you need something to bootstrap on the supply side first, so that there's demand coming in, and then the flywheel starts taking off. So I think like DePIN and just in general tokens like serve as a very good flywheel, and it has already served a very good flywheel for all the crypto protocols, like all the lending protocols in DeFi, or any protocols to take. Like everyone started with like bootstrapping with the token, either like first as a points program to bootstrap the TVL, or either as a token to give like some yield incentives and so on. So I think at the end, like token is the most powerful thing here, which is bringing more and more physical networks onto blockchain or Solana, and that's how like they are bootstrapping capital, the initial community, and also the coordinator set.
Yeah, I think Yash kind of like nails it with the incentives there. Of physical networks are the hardest type of a network to disrupt. And when you think about a lot of these kind of legacy, so like for wireless, it's always been physical infrastructure, and it's always been owned by a very small number of large enterprise that really controlled whether that's the real estate, the operation of those. And the incentives are, again, like how do you actually start to stand up these new networks without that kind of upfront capital investment? So how do you actually increase the ability for participation at larger scale? So instead of singular corporations kind of managing all of this, how do you expand that participation? It's with incentives that are effectively borderless. And I think that one of the things that DePIN gets to hang its hat on is that a lot of the problems we're solving are very, very, you can call them Web 2, you can call them traditional legacy industry problems. For wireless in particular, large carriers are trying to offload that CapEx problem. So as we've kind of, starting to move from 4G to 5G, the need for more of these physical locations to manage that bandwidth. These large enterprises cannot they're spending tens of billions of dollars on an annual basis. So they are looking for other solutions of how do you increase that physical footprint. So that's one of the things that I actually think that DePIN as a space is solving for, is that by incentivizing more participation, you can improve and increase in the supply side. It benefits the traditional industry, but it opens up the space for new competition with new players, because you don't have that large CapEx problem that has to get solved, where you're effectively eating into so much of that investment from a singular entity.
Yeah, I think in our case, like the quality of internet connection at homes has risen so much in the last 10 to 5 years, right? And residential IPs just make a lot of sense for lots of networking use cases, like data scraping or uptime monitoring. So right now we've got like lots of hardware, lots of internet connection that is good enough to serve businesses, and it just sits idle, and just makes sense to get it on infrastructure and utilize it.
Yeah, I resonate with what Scott says on the CapEx side. We were to launch a traditional Web2 CDN, we would need $800 million in hardware deployment. And it's very fascinating with like Web3 coordination. For example, Akamai is the largest CDN out there. They've got just about 200,000 nodes. And for some reason, we just have like 200,000 nodes. So we've got the same physical footprint as a 25-year-old CDN company, doing billions of dollars a year in revenue. So yeah, DePIN unlocks some really magical like innovations with removing that CapEx barrier.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess next question: for AI agents and decentralized infra to work, cost and latency need to be near zero. What are you guys doing in the meantime to kind of work around this and optimize for speed and network efficiencies?
Yeah, I think in general, Solana is like fairly, I would say, cost efficient, as well as it has a decent latency of 400 milliseconds. But there are like different solutions even being built on Solana. For example, I think Magic Block is a good example where you can have a ephemeral rollup, and that has a latency of 10 milliseconds, or like between 10 to 50 milliseconds, based on like how much you co-locate between the sequencer and the RPC. And I think like it's a good example of where you have a same account, just like which is on the Solana mainnet. You don't even need to like switch RPC as a user. At the same time, you can like keep pushing like all the state off chain like onto the layer 2. So I think like that's a good solution where you don't even have to like compromise anything on the composability. And then maybe like if you, let's say you have to airdrop to 200K or 2 million accounts, you can use something like light compressions, account compression, where you can like compress all the accounts and then send all the airdrops via that way. That way you would save like a lot on the rent cost and so on. So I think like there are like different network extensions, or you can even say like network plugins being built on Solana. And obviously you can also like build your own SVM layer 1, like if you want to build that. But again, like you will have to compromise on the composability side. So I think there are different solutions which are now being built on Solana, where you don't have to compromise composability, and everything rests on mainnet. And then you can like power all the high latency and low cost use case right off the Solana mainnet.
Yeah, so optimizing latency and cost, like the whole thing for ping network, that's basically what we do. And the funny thing is that so much bandwidth is underutilized worldwide, starting from like homes and even data centers. They have like 20 to 30% of their bandwidth sitting idle most of the months because it's reserved for peaks. So what we basically do is like make internet more efficient, because we just get lots of hardware and helping these guys utilize it. And as the network will get bigger, we'll be able to do also a lot of stuff in terms of like optimizing routing and making the whole network more efficient.
So ultimately, robots need connectivity. And anybody who is also kind of thinking about the kind of geographic, proximity issues, number one, you need to be able to self-deploy. You don't want to be at the behest of another organization to kind of create that wireless coverage for you, but also in terms of the cost. Again, the fact that because we're removing that CapEx issue on a per gigabyte cost basis, Helium is often like orders less, it's like 25% of what you'd kind of normally pay towards another provider. So the ability to deploy that coverage, to be able to use it and orders cheaper, ultimately robots have got to talk to some network at some point. So being able to have that connectivity layer, I think, is just kind of feeds into all what everybody else is talking about.
Yeah, so pipe network, we live and breathe latency every day. We have really unique insights into global latency on the internet. Essentially, we can see shifts in internet link connectivity in real time now with this many nodes. The nodes form basically like an intermesh, so not a full mesh. And it's fascinating. We can route traffic in between the nodes. For example, we can go from Brazil to Tokyo in about 150 milliseconds, and traditional internet's going to be about 250 milliseconds. So it's really fascinating what you can do at scale with this many nodes. And I think latency is one of the biggest use cases that come to us today. Is like half of inbound is like people trying to serve inference for real-time chatbots, and those have to be like 50 milliseconds or below, or users exit that very quickly.
Yeah, makes sense. And even outside of robots, like AI as well, blockchain is going to be required for the communication and operation aspect of that. So I guess other question over here. In general, like the Solana's fee markets are changing, and that's going to be a trend. This obviously changes how prices and whatnot are computed. How are you guys designing your guys' infrastructure to kind of take this into consideration, for the future?
Yeah, I think on the fee market structure, I think like it doesn't like change like very significantly for apps. I feel obviously the cost of transaction would change and all of that. But I think like, yeah, in general, like those are like very not like very significant changes unless like you are doing something at very high scale. So yeah, I think like not a big consideration for us particularly right now.
Yeah, for us, it's also like we've got guys in Termina. We are using like the data rollup with the key compression. So I think even we have like millions of contributors, it wouldn't still cost a fortune for us to commit data on blockchain. So I think we covered on that.
Yeah, I think that, in terms of core design principles around Helium, one of the most important things is how we abstract away a lot of the kind of blockchain crypto components. Because again, if we're thinking about human scale application here, we want to incentivize as much participation as people don't have to understand or kind of worry about these types of things. One thing that the engineering team has built recently is kind of an automated claim system. So obviously, the way that Helium runs is you've got hotspots out, and they are helping to process data and verify the location, and you're earning those rewards as data passes through the network. Every time somebody wants to claim the reward, they're going in and doing that manually. Well, obviously, we don't want people to have to, whether it's fee markets or whatnot, just the idea that it's a set it and forget it, that you can actually automate those claims on whether it's a weekly basis, monthly basis, because obviously every claim costs an amount of money. But again, going back to the fact of we just try to make sure we remove that from the user experience in such a way that it's abstracted away from the user. So regardless of how things kind of continue to evolve with fee markets, that we are kind of designing in such a way that it is invisible to users on both supply or demand side.
Yeah, we're right in lockstep with you guys, I think, in a lot of ways. The fee markets are very fascinating, especially the expansion of block space for Solana. We will start off with like an epoch-based payout, but ideally, we'd love to just pay the nodes byte by byte, byte per token as quick as we can, pay these guys out. And I think Solana's on track for this, and the expansion of the block space is very fascinating. The epochs are huge already. They're like 3 terabytes. I think doubling it's going to be really amazing to see the growth and the bandwidth utilization.
That makes sense. What do you guys think is the biggest opportunity within the DePIN and Web3 AI space?
I think in general, like anything like which is which has a hardware network or just like physical network, even not even physical network. I think like whichever has a network and has like two-sided marketplace, like supply side and demand side. I think like that's kind of an opportunity to be bought on chain. Uh, in general, I like anything like which has related to, let's say, sensors. I think like ambient network is one, like which is working on that side. So I think like that's like an interesting space. Apart from that, like I think like agriculture is something like which has been a bit an unexplored. Obviously, it's a very difficult problem to solve as well. So something on that direction. On the AI agent side, I think like again like coordination for AI agents on like how do you incentivize different agents. Again, it is something like which is a bit futuristic. We don't even have a proper on-chain AI agents yet. So coordination is a far-fetched problem. But I think that's also something which will come later on. Like how do you incentivize AI agents to contribute to a network, and how do they get rewarded, and how do they coordinate on-chain? So I think like that would be another space to look out for.
Yeah, so for the DePIN, I think like I'm really interested in looking how it turns out in terms of the demand, because I think like lots of projects, they learn how to bootstrap their supply side, and we are seeing like thousands of nodes, dozens of thousands of nodes on different networks. And right now it's time for everyone to hustle and get some demand. And I think DePIN has like some real world applications, and it definitely has good tech enough for right now for Web2 businesses to onboard. So yeah, definitely interested in looking how it turns out in terms of demand this year.
Yeah, in terms of, so the question was around opportunities for DePIN. I think it's the fact of that there's existing legacy buyers on the other side right now, that that as a kind of subsector within crypto, if you will, that what DePIN's solving for is physical world kind of capital constraints that exist right now. So kind of again, using wireless as the example, these large carriers don't want to, they can't and they don't want to spend tens of billions of dollars to continue to manage an existing footprint, expand that. So the idea that there's always going to be carrier networks, but the fact that they can be supplemented with a, call it, community built network, it expands their footprint. It brings down the cost of connectivity. It just in terms of reducing both capital and operational expenditures for these large enterprise. The fact that there is a buyer there on the other side, and I mean, we're seeing this already. AT&T, the second largest telco in the United States, is actively roaming into Helium. That means that of their roughly 120 million subscribers, Helium is solving for a coverage problem for people who don't need to know or understand anything about crypto. And there's a buyer there on the other side of the market that is ready, willing, and able to leverage these types of networks to solve their commercial problems. So I think that's definitely like the big opportunity right now, is that for a lot of these physical networks that are getting built with crypto as that incentive, that there is a very clear demand side, that there are customers for this, and that it is solving kind of what is already an existing constraint for, if you want to call it Web 2.
I think there's a lot of DePINs going to come out, and I think it depends on their market direction, the products, if they can actually outcompete existing Web 2 companies. If you can be 5 or 10x more efficient than existing tech, basically you don't need sales or marketing. The product speaks for itself at that point. And CDN market in particular, it's a 25 billion a year TAM, and it's commoditized down to the cheapest margins right now. And the companies are thrashing and dying. About 6 months ago, a consolidation failed, and 25% of the CDN market the next day disappeared of like a bankruptcy. So the commoditization is like really aggressive on these Web 2 companies in this side.
Yeah, makes sense. Really, really good points over here, guys. I guess we can jump into hot takes for the last part of the segment. I guess I can kick it off with one on my end. I personally think the DePIN AI sector will be the largest growth sector within the space over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think I also agree that deep in AI would be like one of the biggest sector, just because it is something which like transcends beyond crypto, and most of the other side is like non-crypto users. So I think like definitely it can go beyond it. I think another thing here is like if you are building a deep in network, the token needs to be integrated well. I think for most of the DP networks right now, they have TG'd at like $1 billion valuations, but they don't even have that token net integrated well in their network. So if they are not integrating it well, I think like they didn't even need token to start with. It's just mostly like a get rich quick scheme. So I think yeah, overall like most DP networks doesn't need a token if they don't aren't integrating well into the network. So I think that would be the hot take.
Yeah, so David just said that good product sells itself, and in my opinion, what's really important in my hot take is that if DePIN projects don't have like a killer biz dev or sales team, they actually like wouldn't wouldn't be here in a few years, because basically even with good tech you need good distribution, and you need like awareness to get those web2 businesses on board. And we are competing with like tech giants that have been on the market for like 10 to 20 years, and they've been like polishing their sales and onboarding flows, and the costs should be great with DePIN, but you still have to get those people to sign the contracts and get on your infrastructure.
So I'm going to borrow from a conversation that I was having earlier with a team, and it's the idea that we actually need more DeFi for DePIN. Obviously having these kind of solving the cold start problem with tokens and incentivizing your early community and starting to create that initial supply kind of gets you to that like first threshold, but to really scale up these types of networks to where they need to be, working with, I mean, at least for us, and I know this is true for a lot of other DePIN networks, for these real professional deployers, for these larger scale deployments in certain geographic regions, you need to have the right type of lending protocols in place. And I think, again, like a lot of the primitives, a lot of the pieces are already there. The fact that you've got rewardable entities that sit on chain that can be leveraged as collateral opens up the space for a lot more DeFi to scale DePIN to its kind of next wave of growth. So I would say more DeFi on DePIN is kind of how we're going to get to that next level of scaling beyond just kind of early community bootstrap.
I think my hot take is that DePIN's going to enable, solo founders to come out and generate hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in revenue with, 5, 10, 20x innovations. You can look at companies like Palantir. They ran, I think, for about 20 years with 0 sales, 0 marketing, hit 2 billion in revenue. So there's a market out there when you can build products that competition cannot compete against.
Makes sense. I guess we got some more time here, so we can come up with some more questions. But how do you guys think stable coins and Fire Dancer impacts your guys' personal businesses?
I think Fire Dancer is something like, okay, it's a very high performant client. I think like it's still very far away, because even if like it's comes on mainnet, like more than like yeah, super majority of what validators has to adopt for the network to be truly fast. Otherwise, like network would be like basically as slow as its slowest node. So I think like at the end of the day, like Fire Dancer definitely improves the network reliability and all of that. But now on the performance level, I think like it's kind of overrated. Fire Dancer. And the stable coins, obviously, I think like stable coins growing in TVL is definitely bullish for the whole Solana sector. I think like Solana is now around $13 billion of stable coin. I think like that would skyrocket a lot. And obviously, meme coins are the major contributor for that stable coin growth. But in general, like that's like kind of, you can say, the capital true capital moat of a ecosystem, the amount of stable coins, because there's a high stable coins, like it will affect all the DePIN projects and the entire DeFi sector and all of that. So yeah, definitely increasing stable coin TVL is highly bullish.
Yeah, so progress in stablecoins market and like just progress in, on the banking rails that support that is super important, because at the end of the day, when we reward users with token for their contribution, they still need to get it somehow for like in real life and pay for stuff. So that's really good to see that there is like more adoption of stablecoins. There is more adoption for stablecoins in like traditional banking, and I think it will only get better in like the next few years. So that's pretty exciting thing.
So I'll plug Santiago from Inversion Capital. If you haven't heard any of his kind of talks or his podcast recently, I would highly recommend go check it out, because kind of his thesis around how do you really scale kind of the economic and capital benefits of crypto to 2 billion people. He's really thinking about the fact of, what does everybody have in their pocket? A phone, and you have that connectivity, but then how do you actually bring in all of these different kind of financial tools and instruments connected through a mobile carrier? Well, that all comes with stables. So the idea of kind of bringing these two things together and being able to do these things on top of Solana, you're introducing a kind of, again, borderless financial tools that can benefit everybody in a way that I think is, I guess that's the only possible on Solana plug that we can throw in here at the end.
I'll just drop in, about fire to answer. I think it's amazing competition. I think it's cool they're building it. I think at this stage in programming language evolution, you've got to be nuts to build something in C++ and trust billions of dollars on it. You've got these memory safe languages. This comes from a person that's spent 25 years building in C++.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Great panel here. And we're wrapped up over here.
Thanks all.